I wanted to go ahead and take some time to actually do this video and record it. I just got done with a guest lecture for a nonprofit organization and got some really good feedback, and people were saying, first of all, dude, you talk way too fast, you're too passionate about this stuff. I was taking notes but didn't get it all. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put it down in recorded form and send it out so you can replay it again and again and again. But you're gonna wanna take notes. This stuff is fantastic. So first and foremost, I always like to start with asking people to help give themselves a gift. And so the gift I'm going to ask you to give yourself is to stop believing the lies. Let me explain what I mean by that. By stop believing the lies, we tend to have this negative thought process, this negative pattern that continues, and it tanks us, some more than others. My personal story is it took me into a severe state of depression, and eventually I became suicidal. That's how bad it got. And so fortunately, I was able to still look from a logical standpoint, which when we are emotionally involved with ourselves, it is so difficult to do this. So I started looking at some of the numbers. And what I found is, depending on what study people are quoting, it looks like it's anywhere between 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day is what we have. That blew me away. 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. So I started doing some more research and digging in a little bit more. And what I found is over 80% of those thoughts are negative. They're harmful, whether it's from trauma, whether someone gave me a look and I took it as a negative thing, but it's negative. And as I dug even deeper, up to 98% of those thoughts are the exact same or similar the day before. So all this means is we are conditioning ourselves to have this negative output that continues to just front load this barrier of anxiety, of depression, of all sorts of these negative emotions. And so I started to understand a little bit more that we're kind of like hoarders of negative thoughts. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but there's a show called Hoarders. Now, looking from the outside in, it's really easy to think, wow, that poor person, they're really messed up. There's stuff everywhere. How do they live like that? Yet almost all of us are living that way in our heads. We are hoarding these negative thoughts from our earliest memories all the way to present. And so as we start looking at this, it's no reason and no wonder why up to, I think we're just under 45 million Americans now, this is reported, experience some type of mental health issue. Now that's just reported. I never reported my depression. I was ashamed. I didn't want anyone to know. And when it started becoming more suicidal in nature, forget about it. I didn't want anybody to know. I was so ashamed. And so just from the reports, up to 45 million, I started to realize I'm not alone in this. There's other people that actually are going through the same thing. And so I looked at these two different fields and I thought, wait a minute, this is all based on emotion, and I have been a consumer of emotion. Life has been happening to me, and I've just been, whatever I feel is how I've been living. So I started questioning, okay, if being a consumer of emotion has led to this type of life, what if I become a creator of emotion? Now hear me out, because sometimes when I think about this stuff or when I hear people talk about it, I think, phooey, but stick with me. By becoming a creator of emotion, I now start to view life as life happens for me. Somehow, some way, I can start conditioning myself to look at things different and experience the emotions I want to daily. I love that mindset. And so as I started looking into different studies of conditioning and habitual thinking, of course, when you Google it, Pavlov's dogs come up, that this gentleman, I think it was in Russia, actually did these tests, and every time he would put food out, he'd ring a bell. And then this went on, I don't know how many repetitions, but he kept ringing a bell, and eventually he didn't put the food out, but he rang a bell, and the dog started to salivate. It was a conditioned response. Now, I've heard all men are dogs, but I thought, could it be that easy? Can I train myself like an animal where I can condition different outcomes? So the answer is yes. As weird as that sounds, do me a favor, close your eyes right now. And while your eyes are closed, I'm gonna show you how easy it is, how we're already conditioned, and it's something as simple as this. So with your eyes closed, picture this juicy lemon sitting in front of you. And as you pick it up and you take a knife and you cut it in half, I want you to bring it up to you, that half, where you can see the juices. The juices are just flowing down. You can see that beautiful yellow rind color. And I want you to bring it to your mouth, and before you take a bite, I want you to smell it and just squeeze it a little bit where you see that juice, and then go ahead and sink your teeth into it and take that bite. Now go ahead and open your eyes. If you actually did this, more than likely you're experiencing some salivating going on. It's a normal human reaction because of the conditioning. And so as I took that, I thought, Well, if it's that easy within a 15-second exercise of picturing a lemon, what if I could do that with my emotions? What if, as human beings, we can actually overcome this negative habitual pattern? And so as I started digging a little deeper, you can tell I like to think and I like to dig. As I started digging a little bit deeper, I started to find, oh my gosh, all these negative thoughts stem from either one or both of universal fears. And what those two fears are, regardless of where you're from, is the fear of not being good enough, also known as rejection, failure, all that type of stuff, or the fear of not being lovable. And those are the two basic foundations of everything bad in the world, we'll say. And so as I started recognizing this, I thought, so there's really two categories. And we take action when we fall in a certain category that pushes us enough to move. And it's the category of inspiration. When I feel so inspired, I actually get up and take action, or desperation. And I lived the majority of my life in this mindset of desperation to either take action or not take action. And so I wanted to find out, what will it take to get over here into that inspirational category? And so I thought of this analogy, it's like gold digging. Hear me out. In order to get gold, which is an abundant, I guess it is abundant, it's a huge resource that we continue to take from the earth, we have to dig down. And on top and at the surface, it's all this crud and grudge and slime, but we have to dig down and get machines to actually go down to find that vein, to pull out the really healthy, the good stuff that we can sell and that's worth of high value. So I thought the same's kind of similar for emotions. What do I have to do to dig through the crap in order to get that value, that gold? And in the emotional world, the gold is love, appreciation, affection, honor, respect. It's all this beautiful stuff. And so I came up with eight different ways. I shouldn't say I came up with it, but I started picking from these different people and found there are 8 things that I can do on a daily basis to start conditioning this healthy mindset to get out of this state. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm a really depressed person by nature. It's a joke. I used to be. I am inherently happy and healthy now, but it came from new conditioning. So here's the 8, without further ado. The first thing, meaning attachment. It's not what events happen to us in life, it's the meaning we attach to it. So as I started to understand that, I started looking at it and thought, oh my gosh, that's right. Everything we do in life is the meaning that we attach to it. So how do we start attaching healthier meanings or happier meanings to what goes on? And so this is where we want to be aware of the meaning we're attaching to it. So one thing I forgot to go ahead and put in is with the meaning attachment, Dr. Seligman came out with some brilliant work a while ago, and he actually saw this whole aspect that leads to this meaning attachment. He calls them the 3 Ps. I want to share them really quick. The first one is when something that we attach negative meaning to, it hits on these 3 Ps. So the first one is personalization. We tend to personalize stuff. So if something bad happens, we think, oh, it always happens to me, or why me? And so what he's saying is, when we're aware of this, we want to generalize it. Let's do the opposite. So I think we're up to like 7-point-something billion people in the world now. So when I think, oh, I'm the only one going through this, or why me, or it always happens to me, the reality is no, this is happening to so many people. So when I generalize it, it tends to take away some of that weight, and it's not as heavy. So I'm able to go, oh, this is par for the course, or who else does this happen to that's actually on the other side and where I want to go that I can model and actually learn from. So that's the first P. Second P is permanence. We tend to think this is how it is, it's how it's always going to be. But when we look at that, we can realize, wait a minute, this is just a small little snippet in my life. Let's fast forward to the end of my life, and I plan on living a very long time. So this little thing right now, I probably won't even remember this when I'm in my hundreds, 110s, 20s, however old I end up living, and I'm sitting there with my wife and we're laughing and just kind of rehashing our life. This is probably going to be a blip. So by taking it from permanence to temporary, there's a great saying in the program, this too shall pass. And the third P is pervasiveness. Now, that's one of those crazy edumacator words I had to look up. I didn't know what it meant. And it really just means blowing something out of proportion. Something this small and we're thinking it's a huge deal. And so I found there's 2 ways to get through that pervasiveness. First, seeing the issue as it really is. We tend to blow it up, just seeing it as it is. And then once I see it as it is, then I see it better than it is. asking myself, what's great about this? Or what lesson can I learn from this? Or how will this help me help other people down the road? So I wanted to jump in to give you those 3 P's on the meaning attachment. Number 2 is this mindset of my voice versus the voice. Now, when I'm in my head, I don't know about you, but I tend to make really poor choices, and I tend to kind of fall off the trail, off the beaten path. The voice is what most human beings, now for me, I say God, and it's my voice, the emotions are so heavy and just take me off track. When I get in alignment back with the voice, it brings me back into center. And so it's this never-ending, constant conversation with God that I have to make sure I'm staying in alignment with my purpose and my higher intention in life, which is through Him. So that's the second thing. And if you're not a believer, it's totally okay. Basically, we're just looking at it's mindful awareness. It's creating this space so we can become an observer. So we're not feeling the weight of our emotions or taking them all on, but of going, oh, wait a minute, I'm observing this, and it makes it a little bit more palatable. The third thing is gratitude. Spending some time being grateful. And I know if you're going through depression, I know when I didn't want to be grateful. I wasn't grateful for anything. And so I started looking at what can I be grateful for that doesn't take any effort on my part. I'm very lazy. And so I thought, I forget who said this, and I don't remember the numbers. I don't know if the scientist said it's a 1 in 3 trillion chance or 1 in 30 trillion. We'll be conservative, 1 in 3 trillion, still crazy. But the odds of you being you, the universe or God or whatever conspired, and those are the odds of you being you. So I had to materialize it to make it tangible. And as I thought, I went to my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, meeting my great-great-great-great-grandmother, and them coming together when they did. And then on my mom's side, the same thing, great-great-great-grandmother and father. And then it came all the way down to the day I was born, and I thought, holy cow. The fact that all this lineage came down and eventually made me, that's huge. So when I say gratitude, I'm not talking about huge things, I'm talking about simple things like that, but thinking on a greater scale. Number 4 is kind of a tough one. Well, it's simple, but it's difficult to do, and that's forgiveness. To be able to forgive the people, the things, the memories that wronged me. Now, when I forgive, it's not for them. I like to say, F them. And for some of you going, oh, what's with the harsh letter? F stands for forgive. So if your mind went somewhere else, bring it back. But it's forgive them, but not for them. It's for me. Buddha said, resentment is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. And I kept dying daily with all these resentments of people who wronged me. So as I forgave them, it was weird. It was like all of a sudden I got this release. And so that 4th one, which is forgiveness, is difficult, but it's a huge one. Number 5 is one of my favorites. It's connection. Now this one is really easy. This is either a tool that can be used against us or a weapon for good. I like to use mine as a good. What I mean by that is I will choose 2 to 3 people each day, wife, mom, dad, family, friends, and I will send them a text. And the 3 things I look to hit on is love, honor, and appreciation. Those are huge 3 key things. And nowadays, with the way technology's changed, I can do a voice recorder, or what I just stumbled on last year is you can video yourself. You can do a little selfie. It takes about 20 to 30 seconds, just letting them know. Like I sent one to my mom the other day, just saying, hey mom, I know I was a difficult kid. You stuck with it, you sacrificed so much, you showed me unconditional love, and it's amazing because you helped form the person I am, and I'm now passing that on to my kids, knowing they're gonna pass it on to their kids, and just the generational effects because of you, Mom. I just wanted to say I love and appreciate you and honor you. She's still texting me saying, I watch that daily and I'm crying, and I'm so grateful for that. But I'm able to connect with people and send that, and it just helps root me. So that connection part is huge. That's number what? 5. Number 6, I call the 3 T's. TA, TL, and TM. I'm gonna explain. At the end of each day, I do a quick recap in my mind and I think, what was my top moment of the day? What was that one moment that I either got goosebumps or chills or thought, that was awesome? And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could be small. Same thing with my top accomplishment and my top lesson. Now, after a few days, it's not a huge deal, but as you start going further out in time, after a week, you have 21 things to look back on. After a month, you have just under 100, if the math is correct. I'm not a mathematician. After a year, you have just under 1,000. Can you imagine just flipping back through your year and reading all these top moments of your life, your top accomplishments and top lessons, and it was just in 1 year. Now, some people say, but a year is so long. Recording this, we're just a few days into this new year in 2019, and everyone I'm talking to goes, man, 2018 flew by. I can't even comprehend how quickly it went by. Trust me, this year we're gonna be doing the same thing in 2020. So if you start this now, you look back, literally it's one of the highlights of my years when I look back at the life that I created for all those days, and I get to relive it. So that's the 3 T's. What is that? Number 7, we got 2 more, stick with me. Number 7 is I call it the 4 Ps. Again, you'll find I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so I find ways to hack and I find ways to borrow other people's time, resources that I can benefit. And so I found myself going back to this phone. I discovered several years ago, there's actually calendars in here that you can put on repeat day after day. So I've narrowed it down to, I do 4 reminders. The first one comes off in the morning, and the first one is be passionate with whatever you do today and give freely. Can you imagine I'm having a bad day or I get cut off on the way to work, and then all of a sudden my alarm goes off and I'm able to go, that's right, I need to be passionate and give freely. Next one that comes up, it's about 3 or 4 hours later, is purpose. Is make sure you're living your highest purpose today. Be intentional. And that just helps no matter what life throws at me, realign, again, this realignment of, am I living my purpose today? About 3 or 4 after that, 3 or 4 hours later after that, I'm looking at, it comes off and says, be playful. It's the third P. Be playful in what you do today. Make sure that you are having fun, because this life is way too short and way too important to take seriously, so enjoy the process. And the final P is presence. Now, full disclosure, I suck at this, I'm working on it daily, but it goes off at nighttime when I'm with my kids, and it says, be present with your children. Make sure your time spent is fully present. It helps remind me to put my phone away, which I struggle with. It helps remind me to stop thinking business mode or with other people and just to be present. And so that's one that really helps. The 8th one is grow. Do something every single day, whether it's listening to a podcast, a YouTube video, reading a book, doing something to help expand. And what they say, the more we grow, the more we get out of it. We're like an empty vessel when we're born, and we can fill it with whatever we want. So by doing that daily growth is huge. And so it actually, that reminds me of an analogy I heard the other day. When I was younger, I got to go to India and spend some time there. And I remember seeing these huge, massive bull elephants. And it was incredible because they had this tiny little chain tied around their foot, and it was staked into the ground. Now, as a human, you could walk up and actually, if you pull hard enough, you could rip the stake out. As a huge elephant, I'm thinking, why don't they just pull it and walk away? So when talking with one of the guys who trained them, he said, well, what you do is when they're pups, I'm not really sure what they call baby elephants, but when they're little babies, you tie them to that stake, and it actually trains them. No matter how hard you try, you cannot go. This is bondage, and it will keep you here. Now, before I say anything, in India, they use, it wasn't like a circus. They use their elephants to plow the land. It's like a pet, and it helps them actually survive and to live. Thought I had to throw a little side note in there. But it's incredible because once he told that to me, I thought, wow, so when they're big, even though they have all the power, with just a little bit additional force to pull, they could, but since they've been conditioned at such a young age, as soon as they feel anything on their foot, they think, oh, just go ahead and stay here. And that's what we do with our minds. That's what we do with our negative thoughts, knowing I have and possess everything to actually break through. But because I've been so conditioned, I stay enslaved to this type of emotional crap, if you will. And so when I think about that, I think that's right. Now, when my life is going really good, it feels good, but anybody can do that. When their expectations are being met or even superseded, and they're saying, gosh, life is so good, anybody can enjoy that and be happy. It's in those times when I'm struggling, it's in those mental battles that I go back to this whole process, and it helps me through. And I heard this too about a month or two ago that I absolutely loved. You gotta go through the mess to get the message. And you've gotta go through the pain in order to get the gains. Otherwise, you remain the same. And without being tested, you can't get a testimony. Now that hits me so big, so I wanna leave you with this. As we learn to, and we just went over those 8 steps, how to master your thoughts and condition healthier, happier thoughts. Master your thoughts, you master your emotions. You master your emotions, you master your actions. And once you master your actions, your world becomes, or the world becomes your playground. And so I leave you with this: the world's your playground. Play big.